Welcome to What's New SOLIDWORKS 2011 Enterprise PDM and Design Checker webcast. My name is Bill Mitchell. I'll be doing the webcast for this particular topic. So the first thing that we're going to cover as far as Enterprise PDM goes is the installation. In previous releases of Enterprise PDM from an administrative image, you would have to install the SQL DMO drivers. In Enterprise PDM 2011, the components now communicate with SQL Server 2005 and Server 2008 via ODBC. This means that the installation is simplified, so administrators no longer have to install those drivers as part of their administrative installs. Some other new topics as far as what's new in Enterprise PDM is the ability to collect support information, group import from Active Directory, text lists with aliases, the ability to associate drawing types with file types, arithmetic and string functions and input formulas, and the ability to export workflow links. All are new in 2011 PDM Enterprise PDM. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is the ability to collect support information from your vault. So logging into the Enterprise PDM administration application, you want to go to your particular vault in question, right click on it. You may need to connect to it, but if you're already connected, you can go to collect support information. Now, this application works a lot like SOLIDWORKS RX. It has the ability to collect the archive server log, some database statistics, the application version information, the registry portion as it pertains to Enterprise PDM, environment information, any installed add-ins, the client log, and the local event log. And you can also uncheck these if there's anything that you want to omit. The second part is in the ability to include archive folders. So you would select a particular folder, for example. You could tell it to include old versions and subfolders if you wanted to have that information included in your support request. The support information application also has the ability to generate a backup of a particular SQL database. Now it's not going to include it in the archive zip file that gets sent into support, but it does have the ability to create the backup. That BAK file would have to be manually appended to the zip file that this application creates. And the reason for that is that you typically don't want another application reaching into your SQL database server, given that there is a probability or a possibility that other applications are running on that server. Any comments that you would want to add as far as the support request, the symptoms, or whatever it is that your users are experiencing, you could add in for additional information. A lot of times this information may have already been sent to support via email, so anything that you can add or even just do a copy and paste into this area would help expedite any support requests. Typically, whenever we request these files, or the reason that these files would be requested is if there's some problem on your server and we're trying to communicate with developers on this. And then finally, at the end, you can create the package. It's going to make a zip file, and again, any SQL backups would have to manually be appended to that zip file. So that ability, again, is a lot like SOLIDWORKS RX in that you can collect support information, which helps expedite support issues. The second thing to cover is group import from Active Directory. If you have an Active Directory, you've previously been able to import users. If those users in group, if you already have groups in Active Directory that are set up in the way that you would want them to appear in Enterprise PDM, you can import those groups directly whenever you're setting up your users. In order to do that, you would go to your vault, and this particular vault is not set up in order to do it, but whenever you go to your groups, there will be an ability to import those items. Your vault has to be set up, though, in order to do that. The next thing to cover is the text with alias lists. I think probably the best way to illustrate this is to show you its usage, and then explain how it works. So going back over to my vault, I have a particular file type, an SMG file type, that has a data card, and these lists are used to populate the information on the data card. So for example, my created by list has a list of predefined users. When I select a particular user, their initials come up in another text box, which in turn populates a variable. It might be linked to a field on a print or on a drawing file. So the new functionality allows you to create a pull-down list and have it automatically populate other values. So the way that this works, I'll go over to the card for my 3D file set, or for my file type. If I select author, which is the pull-down menu, the special value is initials. The initials is my list with aliases, and it's attached or associated with a variable name called author. Going down a little bit, and I have to resize this. You can see that the initials field is it's attaching itself to the variable name, but it's also the input formula is author, which is the value from this pull-down menu. So when a user selects from author, the input formula pulls that value, correlates it to the list, and puts it into the initials variable. So the way that you make these is you can manually type these in. Go ahead and close this. Go down to lists for cards, right click, add new. I have a new pull-down menu item called text with alias. So I have my displayed value and my alias. So I can click and directly edit the information, or if I have a list already populated in Excel, I can just select the information, copy, and paste. And that will automatically show the displayed value and the associated alias that gets populated. Once that list is saved and given a name, then you can use that in your cards, whether they be file cards, folder cards, variables, and so on. Another new type of functionality is the ability to associate drawing types with file types. For example, if you have a drawing file, come back over to my administration application. Go to my file types, select a drawing. There's a new space down at the bottom of this dialog box that says this file type can have drawing modes with the following extensions. A SOLIDWORKS part file is typically associated with an SLD DRW file type. This association, you don't want to put a period in front of the file extension, but you do want to separate different file types with commas. And the benefit of adding this association is that it limits the reference search. So whenever you do check-in and check-out operations, it should be a little bit more responsive, because it's not having to go through every file type that the vault is aware of, but rather it is limiting the search to whatever happens to be in this field. This functionality replaces two options in previous releases. One option is do not show subparents, and the second option is show this file type as a subparent, or parentheses drawing. So what this is doing is creating a subparent association, and it's a little bit more user-friendly way of approaching that option. So coming back over, you can also show arithmetic and string functions in input formulas. That's done through the input formula, and there's a new menu item for doing adding, subtracting, division, those types of things. And the help file has a fairly good list of examples on how to approach doing that. Again, just to show you where it's at. Go to my cards. I select a particular item. Again, I'll have to resize this. My input formula can be functions, add numbers, subtract numbers, divide numbers, and so on. And again, I would refer you to the help file for specifics on how to get that to work, because it can be a little bit involved to get that functionality in place. It's not that it's difficult, it just takes a little bit of time to set it up. Um, and then exported workflow links. Anytime that you create an export of your vault or of a workflow in previous releases of Enterprise PDM, the workflow links didn't come across, so it would be difficult to understand how a document would jump workflows. In EPDM or Enterprise PDM 2011, those workflow links are now going to be in place, and that should make things a little bit easier to translate across vaults. So let's get into some of the interface changes. As you know, Enterprise PDM is primarily or is embedded in Windows Explorer. So some of the menu structure has been consolidated to minimize the amount of information that's on your right-click menu. A lot of the functions and features are now in pull-down menus from the top. The search capabilities have been expanded. The ability to open files is a little bit different inside of an open dialog box, and I'll show that inside of SOLIDWORKS Explorer, or inside of SOLIDWORKS itself. The ability to update references, so if you're bringing files out or from someone that's outside of the vault, checking them in, it has the Enterprise PDM 2011, has the ability to interrogate assembly and drawing files for any references and make sure that there is a disposition for those particular files in the vault, and allows you to correct those. E-drawing markups are automatically checked into the vault. Cold store or files that have been placed in the cold storage can now be restored, and there's also support for 3D via in the preview tab. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these items. Coming back over to Windows Explorer, the first item is the just a general interface. The icons are a little bit different. They've been given a facelift to help kind of highlight where the Enterprise PDM functions are. If I wanted to go in and look at history, for example, try this again. Rather than having a very long right-click menu, I can get to common items, get versions, check out, open, change states, update, display file history. A lot of the display options are through the display menu. And then over on the right side is search, and then the item explorer if that option is installed. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the search functionality. Coming into search, I can again look and search by cards, variables, checked in, checked out, and so on. So if I want to look for a particular workflow, I'll say maybe under editing, and then if I save this as a favorite, I have the ability to create a menu structure from my favorites. So I'll say custom search. If I put a backslash in the name, then that will create a flyout menu. Can decide who can see the favorite, so let's go ahead and say OK, and then exit the search functionality. Now coming back over to Windows Explorer, and have a new menu item. Under editing, and it shows me all the files that are under editing. Now if I want to look for coming back over to just regular search, if I wanted to clean up those searches and I wasn't sure exactly, if I created a custom search or if I made a typo, if you come back to the full search or the complete search, and again I'll just select on the search button, that brings you to the search dialog box. You can purge these just by right clicking, saying delete, and that purges the favorite so that it's no longer available, and then sometimes you have to collapse and then try to expand. So now that search favorite is no longer in place. Coming back over to SOLIDWORKS, show you the new file open options. I open a file, I'm presented with the open dialog box. If I select a part, I can look either at contains or where used. So it's used in this particular assembly. Previously I couldn't open this directly, but now I can just open that opens that file directly from the vault. So that's new functionality for Enterprise PDM 2011. Restoring files from cold storage is now possible. That was not possible in previous releases. If I come back over to Windows Explorer, I can select an item, right-click on it, select the item, go to Get Version, and you'll have a new menu item that says Versions in Cold Storage. So in previous releases of Enterprise PDM, these files were basically not accessible. Cold storage allows you to take files and pull them out of the archive server to save space and increase search speed, but now you can reach into cold storage and pull those files out directly. If you've not worked with cold storage before, I'll show you the schema that is set up. So this particular scheme, I designate my archive server, where I want the archive server files to be moved to, the folder name, so it's going to have a 4-digit counter, how many versions I want to keep in the archive, and then I can tell to never move versions with revisions, so it's just going to move the incremental versions versus a formal revision, and then I can set the particular schedule. Right now I've got mine set to for every change, but I can say maybe every hour for every day go through and look for versions that could be put out to cold storage to save space, and I can also designate which folders are part of that scheme. So restoring those files from cold storage is a pretty big deal, because that actually makes that functionality a lot easier to use. And then the last thing to show you as far as the interface changes go is the addition of 3D via viewer. Coming to the preview tab, it loads up 3D via. I can access the full menu by right-clicking in this little gray area, say standard menu, and then I can play through the animations of the 3D via file. I can change the perspective mode. Go to any layers. And again, this embedded viewer is new in 2011 and is not available in 2010 and prior. So then the next thing to show is what's new in Design Checker for 2011. The Design Checker comes with SOLIDWORKS Professional and Premium, and it allows you to run design checks or to check for standardization on drawing files, parts, assemblies, and so on. In order to get to this, go ahead and go back over to SOLIDWORKS. From the Tools pull-down menu, Design Checker with the documents closed, say Build Checks, and that starts the Design Checker application. So I'll create a new standards file. And so some of the new checks that are available in 2011, it's a file location check, dimension precision check, which allows you to modify all length, dimension, and tolerance precisions. And it allows you to differentiate between length dimensions and angle dimensions, because many times your angle dimensions are not going to be nearly as tight as your length dimensions. It also looks for feature positioning check. This verifies that the active document doesn't have any 2D or 3D sketches positioned with a reference to a fillet or chamfer edge, which would be considered a poor practice because those variables or those edges may be not very tightly toleranced. It'll check for standard templates, and then also have a report that can be saved out as a Microsoft Word document. So coming back into the Design Checker, going to File Location, I can look for any item in my list of SOLIDWORKS settings and verify that the file path is what it should be. Typically, organizations with many users will have those files put up on a server, but over the course of time, many users, or there's a tendency, especially with applying service packs, for those items to get localized and disconnected from the server. So this application allows you to make sure that those paths are where they should be. Over on the right side, there's some autocorrect options. You can add a missing file path, remove anything that's extra, which is pretty nice. If someone is inadvertently put a path, you can automatically remove anything that is not expressly spelled out in this list. And then you can also check and make sure that the sequence is in the correct order as far as search preferences and those types of things. Dimension precision check can be found underneath the dimensions, dimension precision, and I can tell it to look for specific decimal place values, or I can tell it to set precision by a specific value. Feature positioning check is found underneath features, feature positioning, and I can tell it, give it a particular criticality value, whether it be high, critical, medium, or low. Many times you may just want to flag it. It could be a low priority, but you do want to check those things. So you can set each one of these options with the relative criticality value. Standard template check is going to be underneath drawing document checks, standard template, and you want to make sure many times that everybody's using the correct path, and also has the ability to check for type of projection. Someone issuing a print with first angle projection could cause a lot of confusion out on the shop floor with vendors if they're accustomed to seeing third angle projection. And then finally, the design checker report can be saved out as a Microsoft Word document. And then those can be checked in to the vault. So one thing that you can do with Design Checker in conjunction with Enterprise PDM is if you've installed the kind of the out-of-the-box vault and you go to your list of tasks, you should have one called Design Checker. Design Checker is a SOLIDWORKS task add-in. It has its own card that you can design, or you can put your own card in. You can execute it, whether it be the system that generated the request, or you can farm it out to other items. You can have it as a particular menu item, and then the script automatically runs. You can set permissions of who is allowed to run this task, whether or not it succeeds or fails, and if a notification is sent, or if it has an error, what notification is sent. And then in your workflows, you can have a particular task, execute task. Any given workflow transaction can be set to run the Design Checker automatically. So this simplifies whenever something goes into or goes up for a request to be reviewed. Before it even hits the review, the Design Checker can be ran and help the users, help your SOLIDWORKS users identify where their files might be out of compliance with corporate standards. So that is about it for what's new for Enterprise PDM 2011. March 9th is going to be CircuitWorks and Routing, and March 23rd is going to be PhotoView 360. So I'd encourage you to watch those if you have time. Thanks.